And so once I got to a place on my meditation cushion where I could feel that this was a fear response, I then went, okay, all right, intuition, where are you at? What are you trying to tell me? And I created space for it. I sat in deep contemplation. I created an opening, like an energetic opening, by imagining my armor around my chest cavity just slowly dropping and allowing myself to expand. And I said, hey, intuition, where are you at? What's your message for me? Hello, and welcome to The Art of Lost and Found, a podcast that explores the creative relationship between our inner and outer worlds. It's a creative exploration through stories, insights, resources, and tools to help you intentionally design your life and work. I'm your host, Brooke Eston, also known as the Creative Amplifier. I'm part strategist, part designer, part coach, and part artist. And I'm dedicated to helping fellow creatives bridge the gaps between those big dreams and practical realities. Now let's get into it. I don't know who needs to hear this, but keep listening to your intuition. Make choices that are in integrity with who you are. And then make sure that you're showing up in the actual physical, tangible world with actions that are aligned with that. In today's episode, I share a personal story about a relationship with a client that went from something that was incredibly triggering, that I felt like I didn't even want to touch this project with a 10-foot pole, to this man being a key pillar in my life. Being personally supportive, being professionally supportive, and ending up being my longest term client who essentially pays for all of my living expenses. It's a story that I share that helped me identify how to work with my intuition and then how to translate that into real world, tangible actions that support me in being in full integrity with myself. So I hope you enjoy today's mini solo episode, and I hope that you take something away from it that helps you be able to better show up in alignment and integrity, as well as growing your business in a way that funds your ideal life. Now let's dive into it. I like to say that my world is where the woo meets the work. I help people connect to what's really active for them, their own intuition, their own inner knowing, and then help translate that into a viable, sustainable, scalable business. One that will fund their dream life, not completely eclipse it. So the thing that I want to talk about today is intuition. How to listen to it, how to tap into it, how to even hear it in the first place, and about how that translates into choices that are in integrity that actually get you closer to having the life that we all want, right? We all want a life where our personal life, our relationships, our health, our sense of purpose, all of these things are in harmony with what we do to make money. It's super, super important to, at the very least, have those not be in conflict with each other, and at best, have those fluidly and dynamically supporting each other. So what is intuition? How do you know if what you're hearing, what you're feeling, is your intuition? From my perspective, it's not always obvious. I'll share a story that I think will paint a helpful picture of this. I had an opportunity to work with a client on a high ticket project. He needed somebody to essentially create his course for him on Kajabi. He had most of the content, he had the outline for the content. He hadn't recorded anything yet. It's a whole other story. But we went back and forth quite a bit before crossing the finish line. I met this guy because he was a referral from a company that I worked with, Brand Builders Group. And they had referred this client to me. When I got on the call with him, his energy was so strong. It was so intense. It felt like an energetic bulldozer. I couldn't get a word in. He was just talking so quickly, so intensely, with so much power, so much drive, so much like dominating energy that I could barely ask questions. I could barely respond to his questions. It just felt chaotic in a way that was triggering for me. He worked for a very, very, very well-known, ultra-successful tech company that I had had a challenging experience with in the past. I had done a project with this company and was, in no uncertain terms, sexually harassed by somebody on the team. Like, I'm talking straight up getting dick pics on my phone that I did not ask for and I did not engage with. So this guy who I met through this Brand Builders connection was kind of running the same energy. Just this like dominating energy that I felt overpowered by, and it was triggering. But this project was big. It was like a $20,000 project. It was one of the larger projects that I had been involved in. And as a small business owner, I'm used to dealing with projects that are typically half of that budget. So it was a big deal. But I started feeling that feeling in the lower part of my stomach, that just like gut feeling, that drop. And I heard something inside me going, don't touch this guy with a 10-foot pole. Like, he's bad news. Get out of this. Run. But it was one of the first referrals that Brand Builders had given me. I wanted to make a really good first impression. I was hungry for a larger project, and I knew that I could do it at a high level. I just didn't know if I could navigate this guy, this particular guy. And when the call was over, I felt like, no, I don't want to get involved with that. That seems like that's going to be more trouble than it's worth. And I went back to Brand Builders and I went to the person who made the connection and I said, what's the deal with this guy? What's his story? Do you know, like, is he on something? I'm getting a strong, like, addict, like, I don't know. It seemed like he was on cocaine or something during the call. And the guy at Brand Builders just started laughing and said, no, I don't think so. He's been sober for almost 6 months now. And I said with full confidence, oh, I don't think so. Definitely not. Like, I had a partner who was an addict. I know that energy. And he said, no. I really do think he's clean. I think that's just how he is. I said, okay. All right. Well, I need to think about this. I'm not sure if him and I are going to be the best fit. And I just want to make sure that I can do this project, give this project justice. And he said, yeah, sure. No worries. We'll support you no matter what. And I said, what if it goes badly? What if he, I don't think I used the words, what if he sexually harasses me? But I did say, like, what if it gets to the point where we are no longer able to work together? And he said, if he does something that's out of line, we'll back you. You can fire him as a client. And I said, okay, great. I got that security. Thanks. I'll let you know what I decide. And I still had that feeling in my stomach. And I was like, what is this? Is this my intuition? is this just because I'm triggered and it's old trauma and old fear stuff that's coming up? Like, what is going on with me? I journaled, I talked to my friend, I talked to my partner, and I was still in that place. So for me, one of my primary tools to get deeply in touch with my intuitive self is not talking to all the people and asking all of their opinions. That's what I tend to go for first. But when that doesn't do it, I know the tool for me is deep contemplation. And so the way that I do that is through meditation. So I went to my meditation cushion, my little altar space. I set an intention to identify whether this feeling was coming from my intuition or it was coming from fear and past trauma and projecting my shit onto this guy. So I sat down and I breathed and I felt the sensations in my body and I followed them. I followed the narrative. I followed the sensations. I gave myself a long time sitting contemplating this question. I'm not an expert, meditator, but I do it consistently. And I spend a good 30, 45 minutes just sitting there feeling into this. And I felt into, is this my fear? Is this my trauma? Like, what am I scared of here? What's the worst case scenario? And a little bit of context, if you don't know, I live in Spain and I work with clients primarily that are in the United States. So physically, I'm not even in proximity to this person. Like, I'm not in physical danger, but my body was acting as if I was, because at the time that I had the previous incident with the guy sexually harassing me, with the dick pics, with the whole thing, I was in danger. I was threatened professionally. I was threatened, physically, like come on to, even after I had said no, clearly, multiple times. Long story short, that guy got fired, just a heads up. But when I went deep into my intuition, I could feel this is a fear response. He reminds me of that guy. He reminds me of that energy that was so abrasive and damning for me. But I'm not in that situation anymore. I have learned so much since being in that situation. I've learned about boundary. I've learned about communication. I've learned about so much more than I could say. I could record 10 podcasts on what I have learned since those incidences back in Silicon Valley. And so once I got to a place on my meditation cushion where I could feel that this was a fear response, I then went, okay, all right, intuition, where are you at? What are you trying to tell me? And I created space for it. I sat in deep contemplation. I created an opening, like an energetic opening, by imagining my armor around my chest cavity just slowly dropping and allowing myself to expand. And I said, hey, intuition, where are you at? What's your message for me? And my mind and my body started giving me signs of expansion, of leveling up. You're feeling nervous because this is an edge for you. This is a large project. This is with a very successful, already established client. This is somebody who also is very important to brand builders. So this is an opportunity for me to level up. And the feeling that I'm feeling is nervousness. It's that pre-level up energy where it feels scary because it's unknown, but it also feels deeply necessary and somehow inviting for you to step into the next more expanded version of yourself. And once I got that, once I understood that message, I was like, all right, time to get my shit together, make sure my contract is airtight so I can fire him if things go sour. Make sure I do a really good job of setting expectations at the beginning, because I don't feel confident that I can communicate with this guy on a live call. So I need to put everything in writing first. So I did. I set about essentially getting my professional shit together so that there weren't going to be cracks that we could slide down. There weren't going to be ambiguities that I could, suffer from. So I got my shit together and went back to him and said, I'll do it. And he said, great, but now I want this, and now I want that, and what about this? And I don't want to have this. And we started this back and forth that was fine for like a few days. And then it was less fine over a week. And then a couple weeks into it, I found my courage. I found my strength. And I think part of that was in me doing the work and feeling so confident that I knew what was going on with me internally. And so I said to him, I'm not prepared to continue to change the scope of work. Is this something that you want to do? Yes or no? Let me know, because I've already given you multiple proposals. So you let me know if you're ready to move forward. And if you're not, then I'm no longer going to continue to engage with this. So good luck finding somebody else. I'm sure Brand Builders will have another referral for you. And I was willing to let it go. And that changed everything. That was me showing up in strength. That was me showing up in integrity. That was me not trying to be the people pleaser. And yeah, sure, of course I'll do this. Let me just make myself and my needs smaller and smaller until you're comfortable, which was a lot of the energy that I was running when I would find myself in these challenging situations, particularly with dudes in Silicon Valley. That's that's the experience that I had. Later, this man became my client. That message that I sent him that said, okay, this is it. This is the final iteration of the proposal. Do you want to move forward or not? He said, yes, let's do it. Pulled the trigger, paid me the same day. Like, everything went so easy after that. Then I got on the call with him. I was much more prepared because I had done a little bit of research about different personality types and how to communicate with people like that. Turns out he is a driver personality, and there's a ton of literature on how to navigate that. So ever since then, he has become pretty much the best client ever. He's the easiest to work with. He's the least demanding. The project was epic. He didn't want to lose me after the project was over, 20K in, and he still wanted much, much more. That he pitched me to essentially keep me on retainer, where I have a minimum of work that I do for him and a maximum. So I know it's predictable income. It's a long-term client. And turns out he's like amazing. His story, which I didn't have context for, I had picked up on that addict energy, but he basically has an epic story of recovery, of redemption, of resilience, of recovery. And he's been clean for, I think now, at least probably 2 years, because I've been working with him for over a year. And him and I have developed a really special, dare I say it, loving friendship. There is a bond there. We are mutually supportive. We are mutually respectful. We can pretty much talk about any topic, from like the details of his Kajabi setup to, sex, relationships, religion, like all of the things, in a way that feels really safe. And I credit that to me learning how to identify what was my intuition, what was my fear, what was my responsibility in that, and what was the move. The first was identifying what's the fear here. What is that feeling? Is that a fear coming from intuition, or is that a fear coming from past stuff that I haven't fully worked through yet? So identifying that. Then moving into, okay, what are my options? What's the lay of the land? I don't want to blindly go into something because that feels reckless and irresponsible for my tastes. So I put the boundaries, the communications, the structure in place to allow myself to feel safer in the context of my work, right? I legally was protected. I had an out if it didn't work. I was really clear about how much I was willing to give and where I said, okay, no more. Do you want to do this? If so, let's go. If not, like, you should probably work with someone else, because after this many iterations, if you still don't have what you need, perhaps I'm not your girl. And later, he mentioned that he thought that I was an excellent negotiator in sales. And I was like, what? I don't really fully identify with that. And he brought up how I negotiated with him. So that conversation was significant for him too. And it shifted our relationship to where I had power. I was strong. I could walk away. I wasn't just the vendor trying to get the client. It wasn't about that. I was willing to walk away. So he knew. And from that moment on, that is how this relationship developed. And this relationship still continues. I had a call with him a few hours ago. Every week, like clockwork. And turns out the money that I make from him is literally my living expenses. I live in Spain, so things are a lot cheaper. It is possible for one client with, around 5 or 6 hours of work per week to pay all of my expenses. It does. So he turned out to be my security. It's incredible. Like, when you do the work, when you go into this, it's incredible how much gets revealed. So I absolutely believe that everybody needs to take the time to develop this skill, to be able to connect with your intuition so that you can make choices that are in integrity with who you are. And it gives you an opportunity to create the structures that you need to confidently and responsibly and professionally move into different types of relationships. For me, this is where the woo meets the work. I had to know what is coming up for me, but that wasn't enough. I had to then translate that into actions that were going to be supportive of my business. So this is exactly what I mean when I say this is where the woo meets the work. So the things that I will leave you with in this episode is learn to connect with your intuition. Everybody's different, but there are common themes. And one of the ways to be able to give yourself the spaciousness that you need to do this work is through silence. It's through silence. It's through stilling yourself. It's by turning off all the distractions and all of the noise and being able to go into yourself. For me, this shows up in meditation. For other people, this can be movement. For other people, this can be water, swimming, playing, like something where you're able to just really attune to what is going on inside your body. That is the first thing. The second thing is writing. Capture this stuff. Get your thoughts out of your head so they stop looping and spinning around. Once you get them onto paper, they are so much more malleable and easy to work with. And you can see things for what they are so much more than when they're just in your mind. And third would be try stuff on. I had to run through all the different scenarios in my mind in a methodic way So I could see, all right, if this is my fear and this fear were to materialize, what's the move? What's the move after that? And by playing that all out and by running those scenarios, it really helped me to kind of cover the lay of the land. There's a really great exercise developed by Tim Ferriss. He has a TED Talk on this called fear setting. And it's basically like trying on your worst fears and then developing a contingency plan and asking yourself, are you willing to take the risk? Like, would it really be that bad? If worst case scenario happened, like, what would you do next? So first you start in the body and really try to plug in and connect to the signs that your body is trying to give you. For a lot of people, their intuition surfaces physically in their gut. It's that gut feeling. For other people, it's higher up. It's in the heart. They can feel the heart. For others, it's even higher, like it goes to the throat, right? About their voice and what they can or can't say. Like there's a lot of different things that can give you clues about what your body's trying to communicate. And then from there, do the responsible adult thing, which is protect yourself, honor yourself, set yourself up with a bit of a safety net as best you can, and do that in a way that is in alignment with your level of risk tolerance. Everybody's different. I had a way higher risk tolerance when I was younger. Now that I'm, rounding that 40 corner very shortly here, my risk tolerance has significantly reduced. So this is going to depend on every person's risk tolerance. But in my experience, that has been everything, is learning to read your body and then learning to honor that by protecting yourself, by fortifying yourself, by creating space for yourself, creating options in the physical world where you're interacting with other people. And it's both of these. It's where the woo meets the work that the magic happens. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Art of Lost and Found podcast. I hope that you are feeling inspired and empowered to go forth and explore your curiosity and creativity. As always, if you want any more information about any of our guests or the show notes or anything we discussed on today's episode, you can head over to www.brookeeston.com/podcast. Thank you so much, and looking forward to seeing you in the next episode.